Okay, guys, I wanted to make a video for people that don't really think shit can hit the fan. They just, there was one guy that the other day left a comment, came on one of the videos, and just, you guys are lunatics, blah, blah, blah. You're idiots, you're scared of vampires, and vampires and Satanists or something. And of course, I've never said anything. I've never indicated anything, like that. And like I responded to him, well, he's saying about he's obviously gonna go pick up some chicks or something like that. He's not wasting time. And my response was basically, okay, well, I'm glad you took the time to look up this video that you didn't care about. You've got such a glamorous life. Take time to comment on that. Personally, I don't go looking for videos on the Queen being an alien to disprove it, because I don't believe in that. I don't waste my time in the first place, right? I got better things to do with my time. But for those of you who don't think anything could happen, I mean, shit happens all the time. If you look at, I believe it's going to be an economic collapse, right? For several reasons here. Look at the labor participation rate. We'll start with that. Everybody's thinking that the job numbers are great. Okay, 5%. Yeah, the job numbers are cooked. The labor participation rate, which measures able bodies of age able to work, it's at 62%. Right? I read an article the other day talking about. It was saying that 50% of Americans have trouble if there's an emergency costing $400 or more, right? And it was like 40% of Americans have like $500 or less for savings, right? 22% of Americans were working 2 or more jobs. I mean, 2 is hard enough, but 3, maybe 4. And I mean, that's what's going on right now. Unfunded liabilities. Social Security, that's been running in the negative for like the past 5 years. We're putting out more than we take in. That's not sustainable. We owe more than the rest of the world combined, right? Look at Puerto Rico. They're having an economic problem over there because they admit they're broke. They can't pay. Well, we're in more debt per capita than they are. I'll leave a link in the description bar. The U.S. debt clock. I'll leave a link to the labor participation rate. You look at those numbers. You compare it to Puerto Rico. You think we're doing? We're much worse. The difference is the creditors care about Puerto Rico. They don't care about us yet. Now you look back 3 years ago. Puerto Ricans were just in as much debt as they are now, or more so, but just as insolvent. Nobody cared. Just like we're insolvent. Look at Greece when they had their crisis. They were insolvent and, broke well before anybody took recognition of it. That's going to happen here. We owe more than the rest of the world combined. Right? And it's just getting worse and worse. Look at Venezuela. They're eating cats and dogs right now. Going through an economic collapse. Kidnappings are increasing, just like what happened in Argentina. Right? What happened in Argentina, you'd be talking to somebody would come up to you in the street, well dressed sometimes, chit chat with you, and somebody come up behind you with a gun. Right? They make you get into a van or a car or something, drive you to a ATM, and you have to pull out cash. I don't know if they have a limit over there, but I guess clean out people's accounts. They were talking about families. Somebody knock on the door, they rush in, a group rush in, hold the family at gunpoint, tie them up, and rob them blind. That's the kind of stuff I expect to see in Venezuela as things get worse. It's always the same trend, man. So right now that they're having to carry backpacks to pay for meals, right? Now, for those of you who think we can just print money, well, there's a perfect example. Backpacks full of cash to buy a meal. Look up pictures of these millionaires in Germany, right? Carrying wheelbarrows around to buy bread and a couple supplies of eggs and milk and stuff. Or look at these starving trillionaires in Zimbabwe. They said a can of Coca-Cola was 350 billion Zimbabwe dollars. So, you know, that's problems that are waiting to happen here, right? You look at last time we were bailed out, the dollar strengthened in value, but this time around, you know, the Chinese, they're pulling back on their treasury purchases. The Japanese, which are the second biggest buyers of U.S. Treasury bonds, they're having their own crisis right now, right? Saudi Arabia, they're busted. They're having to buy on debt because the price of oil is down, so they took it pretty hard, right? And who's left? Well, the Federal Reserve and anybody out there who wants to buy, you know, Treasury bonds for 1/4 of a point when the government admits inflation is, what is it, like 2% now that they say, which is understated, but even if it's only 2%, well, you take that 2%, times that by the 30 years, well, you're not really getting a return on that damn money. Anyway, man, and even if it's not economic, the swine flu. Remember that? That was a bit of a pandemic. Luckily, it had such a low fatality rate, at least in, you know, countries here like the U.S. I mean, most of our descendants, our great-grandparents were, they got the, what's it called, the Spanish flu. The survivors, you know, carried the antibodies and passed them down to us. So, countries, undeveloped countries, some parts of Mexico, you know, countryside where the people weren't infected back in the day, obviously couldn't survive it and couldn't give the antibodies to their relatives. But what if something worse comes along? There's H5N1, H7N1, H9N1, H2. There's, I forget the others, but there's quite a few. You never know. Or say a natural disaster, right? Or riots. LA riots, Ferguson, Baltimore. That stuff happens. You really need to think about that. Like, you know, the odds are not that probable, but if it does, then what? Anyway, just something for you to think about, because, you know, I get people like, you know what, I'm just in the mood to just watch The Walking Dead. I'm in the mood to watch shit hit the fan video. Hey man, that shit can't happen. I don't know about zombies, but I'll tell you, I would rather deal with zombies than neighbors that are starving. You know, like in Venezuela, they're eating cats and dogs. What happens when cats, dogs, birds, and squirrel all run out? Huh? I'd rather deal with a stupid zombie that can't think than your neighbors that are hungry and desperate and, you know, lunatics. Personally, but anyway, I think I'm gonna have to deal with crazy neighbors probably. Anyway, for those of y'all who don't think it can happen, man, look into history and see how many times that shit actually does. Anyway, that's it. Y'all have a good one.